In this video, I'm going to look at 5 ways or methods that you can solve a quadratic equation. So let's look at the first equation that I have here. X squared minus x minus 20 is equal to 0. Now, if the equation factors, that's the number one method you should use. If it's not easily factorable, then you can use the method of completing the square, or the method using the quadratic formula. Okay, so this particular one factors, and in the factoring method you want one side to be 0. So we've got x squared minus x minus 20 is equal to 0. So we proceed to factor the left side. It's a trinomial, so we usually apply the trial and error method. I've done some videos on that previously. So we've got x squared as the first term, so we can take a factor of x there, and x over here. X times x is x squared, and then we take factors of 20, that'll come up with this middle term of minus x. So keep in mind that if the last term is negative, in this case minus 20, the factors here in the parentheses will be opposite. One will be positive, one will be negative. Okay. So I'll just put a minus here and a plus over here. Or it could be the other way around. Doesn't really matter since the coefficient of the x squared is 1. And then for factors of 20, because I already have a sign here, I can use 20 and 1, 5 and 4, 10 and 2, but I want to come out with negative 1x for the middle term. So the difference of 5 and 4 is 1. So that looks like that it works if I put the 5 in this parentheses and the 4 on this one. That product has to be 0. So any time the product of two numbers or two factors is 0, that means that either one of the factors will be 0 or they both will be 0. Okay. So all we have to do then is just set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So that means that either x minus 5 has to be 0, or x plus 4 has to equal 0. So then we got x minus 5 equals to 0. When is the product 0? Or when is that expression 0, I should say. Well, x minus 5 will be 0 when x is equal to 5, right? So we can say, okay, one solution would be x equal to 5. And then x plus 4, x minus 5 has to be 0, or x plus 4 has to be 0, or they both have to be 0 in order for this equation, this left side, to equal to 0. So x plus 4 is equal to 0 when x is equal to negative 4. So that's your solution. X equal 5. Or x equal negative 4. And you can easily check by plugging back into the original equation. Okay, now we're going to solve the same equation again using the other two methods. So let me clear this. So the answer, remember, is 5 and negative 4. So we clear this, and now we're going to use the method of completing the square. So for the method of completing the square, again, we want to isolate the first two terms. Okay, so this is going to be x squared minus x, and that's going to say equal to, take the minus 20 to the other side. So this one we're going to do a little bit different because we want to complete the square on that left side. So the way we do that is we bring the third term. Now if it's already factorable the way it is, like in the first case, then we leave it. But in this case, we're going to do it the other method. Okay, so the way we do it here, if this coefficient here, coefficient in front of the x squared is a 1, then leave it. If it's something like 2 or 3, then go ahead and divide everything by that number. We want this coefficient here to be a 1. If that's the case, this will work if I take half the coefficient of the x term, half of that, half of -1 is -1/2, and then we square it. So -1/2 squared is 1/4. So the procedure says we add that number to this side, but then to keep it legal, we add it to the other side. So this will be 1/4. Add it to this side. Okay. So then, the left side then, based on the procedure that I use, should be a perfect square. So to factor it, we put the parentheses and then quantity squared here. And then we take the square root of the first term, which is x. Square root of x squared is x. Take the square root of the third term. The square root of 1/4 is 1/2. And then take the sign of the middle term, which is minus. Okay. So if I take x minus 1/2 and square it, I get this side over here. Now on the other side, we combined. So multiply this by 4 to get the same denominator, so that'll give us 80 over 4 plus 1/4. Okay. So I get the common denominator, multiply by 4 and 4, I get 80 over 4 and plus 1 over 4. And then we add those up, got the same denominator now. So that'll give us 81 over 4. Okay. And now we just take the square root of both sides. Okay, so I take the square root of the left side, and that just will give me x minus 1/2. And then we take the square root of the right side, but we take the plus or the minus, okay, to get the complete solution. So the square root of 81 over 4 is 9 over 2. And that's going to be a plus or minus here. So I got x minus 1/2 is equal to plus or minus 9/2. So that would tell me then that x is equal to, now I'm solving for x, so I'm bringing this 1/2 over, adding the minus 1/2 to both sides. So that'll give me 1/2 here, plus or minus, so plus or minus 9 over 2. Okay, so then x then should equal 2. So here we're going to get the two answers. So first say 1/2 plus 9/2. 1/2 plus 9/2 is 10/2. Well, 10/2 is 5. Comma. Well, I could put another x there. And then the next one would be 1/2 minus 9/2. Okay, that'll give us minus 8/2 or minus 4. So my solution will be x equal 5 or -4, which is the same answer we got using the factoring method. So keep in mind that when you have a quadratic equation, its degree 2, the theory tells you that you expect to have at most 2 solutions. Okay, you could have 2 different ones, so like in this case we have 5 and -4, or you could have one where it's repeated, so the solution could be 1 and 1 or 2 and 2. It could be a repeated solution. Or you could have one where you don't have any real solution. You could have an equation, a quadratic equation, say with two imaginary, okay, or complex solutions. It could come out to say I and minus I, where I is the imaginary unit. Or it could be something of the form 2 plus I and 2 minus I. Again, I being the imaginary unit. Okay, now let's clear this. Let's solve the same equation again. And of course we expect to get the same answer because it's the same equation. We're just going to use, now we're going to use the quadratic formula. So the equation has this format, which this one does, one side 0. Then all you're going to do is plug into this formula right here. So again, we're going to solve the problem, same problem, using the third method, the quadratic formula. It's in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And the numbers we need are the a, which is 1, coefficient of b squared, x squared rather, the b, coefficient of the x, which is negative 1, and the constant, which is c, in this case, negative 20. So a is 1, b is negative 1, and c is negative 20. We're going to plug those into the formula. Okay? So where you have an a in the formula, we're going to plug in 1. Where you have a b, it'll be negative 1. Where you have a c, it'll be negative 20. Now obviously the negative 1 squared under the radical, that's b squared, it's going to be 1. The 4 is part of the formula. Where the a was, we put a 1. Where the c is, we put a negative 20. At the bottom it'll be 2 times a. Okay, those are the entries there. And then in the denominator again, it's 2 times a. A is 1. And of course 2 times 1 will give us 2. So it's just a matter of computing the expression under the radical. Negative 20 times 1 times negative 4, that's 80. And then a 1 gives us 81. But the square root of 81 is 9. Okay, so we end up with 81 under the radical, but the square root of 81 is 9. So that gives us 1 plus or minus 9. And that's all over 2. Okay, so then we just compute. 1 and 9 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. And then we do the subtraction. Now 1 minus 9 is negative 8, divided by 2 is negative 4. And we get the same 2 answers we got using the factoring method and the method of completing the square. Now the last 2 methods are going to involve the graphing calculator. One will involve a standard graphing calculator, which gives you numerical answers. And then on the other one we'll use a CAS calculator. And those are the type that have a computer algebra system, which allows you to give symbolic answers. And I've done some videos like that before using the TI-89. Okay, so we're going to solve a different problem, one that doesn't factor, at least not like the first one did. And we're going to solve it first using the standard calculator and give an approximate answer to it. And we'll need to rewrite it in the appropriate form, so we'll need one side to be 0, x squared minus 4x minus 9 will equal to 0, and that's going to be my f of x. Guess we're going to do it using a graphical method. So there's the calculator, TI-84, silver edition. So we hit the get the graphing screen, and I've already entered the expression, x squared minus 4x minus 9. There it is. We're going to graph this, hit the graph key here. And you can see it intersects the x-axis at 2 points. So the x-intercepts there will generate the zeros, which of course are the solutions for the equation. Okay, 2 x-intercepts gives me 2 zeros, which of course are the 2 solutions. We get the second key, accessing the calculate menu there, and we want number 2 there, which has 0. So hit 2. And we can find either one here. You can see at the bottom there, the left bottom is asking for a left bound. So we're going to access the 0 or solution on the right side. So hit enter there. Now it wants a right bound. So go forward till it passes that point there, and then hit the enter key again. Now it wants a guess. You can ignore that. And there it is. That's your solution. And then we do the same thing again. Second, calculate. Enter, hit the key, number 2 key. And then left bound. Bring the cursor over to the left of that first point. Right, past the point. Hit enter. Once the right bound, hit enter again. Now once a guess, you can ignore that, hit enter. And there's your solution again. And you can round that accordingly. 1 place, 2 places, whatever your instructor tells you to do. Okay, same equation. Now we use the TI-89, which just have a CAS system. So I can get an exact answer with this calculator, or I can get a decimal approximation. Okay. So F2 gives me the menu for solving equations. There it is, number 1 is solved, just hit enter. So here we can just enter the equation as is. So x squared minus 4x equal to 9, and then a comma. So you can tell the calculator what variable you're using. So enter an x, close parentheses, and hit enter. Okay, so there you have it. You have a minus, the square root of, in parentheses, the square root of 13 minus 2, and then x is equal to the square root of 13 plus 2. And you can distribute the negative if you want, and write that as 2 plus, or 2 minus, I should say, the square root of 13. Okay, so that's the exact solution. And of course you can get an approximation if you want. Hit the diamond and then enter. That gets you an approximation. You can see the approximate answer above that. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.